So, you want to share your favorite books with your students to help them love reading. Excellent. But maybe you lack the budget to keep up with their growing love of reading. Maybe you're wishing you could order about 25 different super expensive graphic novels. Maybe your waiting list for Heartstopper isn't getting any shorter, and your best Jason Reynolds and Kwame Alexander titles keep disappearing. I hear you. These problems are only a sign that you're doing great things with your choice reading program. But what can you do besides add to your Amazon wish list and apply for grants? Well, today on the podcast, we're going to talk about how to get your students connected to electronic books and create recommended reading digital shelves for them. And it's actually so much fun and so much easier than you might think. On today's show, I'm walking you through the step-by-step, nitty-gritty details so you can start building your shelves immediately. I've had a lot of questions around this strategy, and my goal today is to answer every single one so you can feel confident in your success. Ready to dive in? Hey there, I'm your host, Betsy Potash, and one-pagers, project-based learning, and choice reading are my jam. I believe in you, and my goal is to help you explore all the creative possibilities you dream of for your classroom. I'm an educator, a chocolate cake aficionado, a traveler who can't wait to get back to Barcelona, and the kind of mom who brings her own mini makerspace to her kid's classroom when she comes to volunteer. I know this for sure, creativity isn't always easy. As a creative teacher, you get parent calls you treasure, and plenty of sidelong comments you'd rather forget. But here's the bottom line. Creative education can ignite a spark in your students and change their lives forever. You and I know this. You're an innovator, and while it's sometimes hard, it's so worth it. So let's explore the world of creative education together. Welcome to the Spark Creativity Teacher Podcast. Okay, so today we're going to walk step by step through this process, and it's going to look like this. We're going to start by talking about how to get your students electronic access to books. This is the foundation. This is super important. This is the step that might take the longest, but it's totally worth the effort. Then we're going to talk about how to set up your actual visual, digital Google Slide bookshelf. Then we're going to talk about how you might give students access to that bookshelf through QR code posters in your classroom library. Okay, so let's start step 1 out of 3, getting your students access to electronic books. Now, in my experience, there are 2 library apps that are the most helpful. They're simple, straightforward, fabulous to use. One is designed for schools and one is designed for public libraries, and they're both designed by the same company, Overdrive. Now, the one that I've used the most is Libby, so that's the one I can really speak to more, but my impression is that Sora is really similar. So Sora is specifically created for schools. Libby is the app of choice for public library systems. Your school may already have Sora. This is something you can go and talk to your librarian about. If they don't already have school access for Sora, they can get it for free. But the free version, my impression again, is that it's quite limited. So you can talk to your librarian or your principal about getting the free version. You can talk to them about starting to build a paid collection within sort of over the top of that free version so that the collection is larger for your students. But if you run into resistance and you find that your district or your school specifically doesn't want Sora or doesn't want to pay for any books on Sora, then your next option is to work with your community library. And this might sound intimidating, but here's the thing. I think a lot of community librarians would absolutely love to work with you on getting library cards for 100 teenagers and encouraging them in their reading. I mean, if you become a librarian, isn't this kind of the dream to help so many kids fall in love with books and use the resources at your library? And so I really encourage you to reach out to your community librarian and talk to them about how to get your class set up with library cards and registered on Libby. Now, one quick thing, if you are in a really small town, which is the case for me with my own library card, I'm in a very small town in Minnesota when I'm in the United States, and my digital collection at that very small but wonderful community library is quite limited. And so I worked with my wonderful local librarian and said, hey, I'd really like to get access for my children and for my family and for myself to more. Is there another library? Can I hook into a wider system? And she said, oh, well, actually, we just have this collection. But if you drive 20 minutes down the road to this other library, they're connected to the very best collections in Minnesota through their digital network. And I was like, okay, fantastic news. I'm totally willing to drive 20 minutes to have access to incredible electronic books. And so if you, like me, are in quite a small town, you might also ask your wonderful local librarian, is this the best library to connect my students to, or can you help me connect them to a wider, larger collection? And you can go from there. So hopefully your school librarian or your local librarian will be willing to come to your school, help your students all get registered for cards, sort of give them a little introduction to your library's homepage at Libby. And if not, maybe they'll be willing to give you 100 applications and you can bring them back to your classroom, have your students fill them out, bring them to the library, and get all those cards. This is something that you obviously have to figure out for yourself in your local community. But please don't be afraid to take that step. I have seen this be successful. I know it is possible. I so believe in public libraries and public librarians, and of course, school libraries and school librarians. If your school already has Sora, this is going to be a very simple process for you. If you have to go to the local, maybe it'll just be the start of an incredible relationship between your school and the local library, which would be fantastic. Okay, so assuming you do this first step and you get your students connected to either Sora or Libby, the rest is really so simple. Once you know what the digital collection your students will be accessing is like, once you can start searching it yourself, now you can start to make your digital bookshelf. And I suggest you do it on Google Slides. Google Docs is not your friend when it comes to images. Trying to drop a bookshelf onto Google Slides, much less layer images over the top of it, is just complicated. It's hard to resize things. It's hard to drag things around. It really doesn't work. So you want to use Google Slides. In the show notes today, where I have a ton of visuals for today's podcast, I also have a link where you can make your own copy of several digital bookshelves that I've already designed on Google Slides. There's an example one, but then there's also blank shelves where you can just put on any kind of header you want. Your best graphic novels shelf, or your creepy reads for Halloween, or your awesome audiobooks shelf. So once you have one of those open, it's just a Google slide with an empty shelf on it. You next want to consider what is your collection going to have in it. So this is where you're going to go through and grab screenshots of any books you want to feature on your shelf. So go browsing. Think about what you want to recommend to your students. Money is no object. Go through that digital collection that they're now going to have access to and pull your favorites in whatever genre or category you want. And you are going to be dropping these onto the shelf on your slide. All you have to do is go insert image, pull up the screenshot from your desktop, put it onto the slide, and then resize it and drag it onto the shelf. And you're just going to repeat that over and over. For each book screenshot, you're going to click on it. You're going to click the link button, and you're going to link your student who clicks on that book straight to the page in their library where they can borrow it. And if they can't borrow it because somebody else beat them to it, they can put their name on the waiting list and get it as soon as possible. So again, it's quite a simple process. It's just rinse and repeat. You drop a screenshot onto the shelf. You link that screenshot to the page on Libby or Sora where a student could check it out. I have created a video walkthrough. Again, this will be in the show notes at nowsparkcreativity.com under the headline, The Step-by-Step Guide to Creating Digital Bookshelves. If you feel nervous about this process, please watch the step-by-step video. It is actually really not going to be hard for you once you see what the steps are, and I really want you to be successful with it. All right. I also have in those show notes a few model digital bookshelves. So, for example, I have a graphic novel bookshelf that has Long Way Down, The Dark Matter of Mona Starr, Fahrenheit 451, When Stars Are Scattered, Speak, Muhammad Najem, War Reporter, and a bunch more. I know many folks listening took my graphic novels PD over the summer and have been collecting graphic novels ever since. This is such a great way to extend that so that you can have even more graphic novels available to students, even more, copies. Maybe you're able to get one copy of a book that you know is going to be super popular. By creating electronic access too, you just allow more students to read it, which is so great. I have another model that's just like a contemporary bookshelf. Some of my favorite recently written books like All My Rage, Clap When You Land, We Are Not Free, Alone, It's Trevor Noah, Starfish. It's just, you guys, it is so much fun to design these bookshelves and to know that you can just do it for theme after theme, genre after genre, and you're giving students this access for $0. It's a great thing. You can also create shelves for audiobooks. You can either just drop screenshots of the books right onto the shelf like you do with any other digital bookshelf, or if you want to get fancy, you can go into a program like Canva and drop a bunch of iPads onto a slide with like little play buttons and then drop your screenshots onto the iPad. So it actually looks like when they click on it, they're going to be reading, listening right off of a digital device. If you design in Canva instead of in Google Slides and then put it onto Google Slides, then instead of linking straight from your screenshots, you'll want to drop invisible shapes that you can link. So here's how you do that. If you have a slide now that has a bunch of pictures of iPads with audiobooks on them, you're going to put insert rectangle, and you're going to put a rectangle right over that iPad that you want a student to click on. And then you're going to choose transparent as the color, and you're going to give it a transparent border so that it's invisible, but it's still there, and you can link it to the library page for that audiobook. And then when a student clicks it, they'll just go straight there, just as if you had linked the image like we're doing with the books. Okay, so now your students have library access. You've created these epic digital shelves, but you're maybe thinking, are students ever going to bother looking at these amazing digital shelves I've created? This is a really good question. I am so glad you asked because linking your digital shelves from your class website or your Google Classroom might not be enough. That's a good step. That's something that's definitely worth doing. Then parents can go see. Then students who are really in tune can go see from there. But I also think it's really helpful to put a QR code display of some kind on your wall by your physical library because that's just going to keep it top of mind from your students. So maybe you create a QR code poster for every shelf you have. Maybe this says like, see our digital mysteries. And then there's the like a picture of the slide with all the digital mysteries that are there. And then there's a QR code that says scan. And then next to it is a shelf that says like, see our digital graphic novels. Check out our creepy Halloween reads. Dive deep with memoirs. Like whatever you want, however many shelves you want to feature. You can feature them individually like that by linking each URL to a specific QR code, or you can just make a big poster that says visit our digital shelves with a big scan and QR code. And students can go to a place where you have all your digital shelves in one place. But you want to make that poster big and bold and inviting. You want to make it really clear to students how they are going to scan and go start browsing. If your students are going to be using their own devices, their own iPads through your school's program or their own phones, you may also want to have a QR code that takes them to download the Libby or Sora app so that it's very easy for them to get in and download all this stuff and have their own shelf. They can do it online. There are online versions, but the app is probably going to be the easiest if they are on an app-based device. So consider also having a little poster that says like download the Libby library app or download the Sora library app with a little scan code. Again, whatever you can do to make it as easy as possible for them to be aware of your digital shelves and to have library access very clearly spelled out how they're going to use it. That will be really, really helpful. Okay, my friend, so we've walked through the steps of getting students Libby or Sora access, creating a digital bookshelf on Google Slides, and then linking to those Google Slide shelves through a QR code display. Remember that there's a full video walkthrough and a ton of visual examples in the show notes today over at nowsparkcreativity.com. So as usual, I hope you'll go check those out. Good luck with your digital bookshelves. Thanks so much for joining me today. Until next time, take care of yourself and stay creative.